Okay, welcome to our third interview of the CDAO magazine with the group CDAO from Saint-Gobain, Benoit Lepetit. Welcome, Benoit, to this third session.
Hello, Julian.
So, what we discussed so far, we discussed the why Saint-Gobain wants to go towards data and AI. We understood how it's about the three C's, it's about customers, it's about collaboration, it's about competition, but also about how we drive sustainability as a core topic in the organization. We then, in our second interview, looked into the how. How do we make this a reality? We looked into the advantages and disadvantages of building a federated data governance model and how to establish strong assets and at the same time really embarking everybody into transformation and all these factors. What we would like to do today is to focus on the third question, the what. What have we done so far? What we have learned? What are some best practices? So perhaps we can start directly with what not many people talk about is the failure stories, right? Is there anything where you could say, look, we tried something, it didn't work out, we learned something important from it, that we need to do better? Is there something you could share with us on that topic?
Absolutely. Of course, and we engage our teams to be a learning organization. To be a learning organization, we need to fail. We need to fail fast, but we need to recognize our failure in order that we progress continuously in this way to have even greater teams and even greater learnings. So, of course, organizational topics was a key point. In the way that we were structured. For instance, we started an organization maybe linked to maturity, but by capabilities. So meaning that we have engineering, we have BI, we have data science, and so on. The problem of that was the difficulty from an organization, from a customer to connect to our organization. So we need to recognize that and make an evolution of this organization. It's what we have carried last year, moving more than 150 people into service lines, permitting to connect to what is the access to information, what is the optimization to action, to have a layer to connect to the customer and to serve from the need until the run and the ensuring of the quality of the product. So it was a recognition of the failure in terms of ability to clearly connect. Another failure, which may be quite classic, it was the difficulty for small projects or from a medium project to have what we define as a product manager, a data product manager that permit to do the translation between the business need towards the capability to create these functional parts. It's where we maturing a lot from what we see. We formalize a lot. We have design authority. We ensure a professionalism all the way along because we see that in some project we fail to deliver at a good quality. So we need to progress in this. Overall, I would say on top of this organizational issue, I would say that sometimes we over-engineer solutions. So we try to fine-tune our AI solution where basically we should assess what is the meet to the demand. So we put fix on that in order to avoid this kind of wasting time, in order to directly test, fail, see, measure, and create at the end the impact for the company.
I love that. It's really, really rich from what you just shared, I think, on many different levels. What I find very interesting is this switch to service lines and not saying we are structured. It reminds me a little bit the journey from John Deere, the tractor company. The tractor company was built by basically pieces of the tractor. So you had the person responsible for the brakes, the one for the tires, the one for the wheels, and so on and so forth. And they had to reorganize them completely across service lines and say, okay, what is actually the service that we provide to the farmers, and then restructuring everything. So it sounds very, very similar to that aspect. One thing that I found very interesting that you just mentioned is to say, we have built this type of role who help translate the needs into the project, which I think is one of the most important roles in an organization to make data and AI a reality. Often we don't have sufficient resources on that role, right? It's a role that's still emerging, and we see a lot of challenges of who do you take? Do you take the data scientist, but then they don't understand the business sufficiently? Do you take the business guys, but don't understand the technical sufficiently? If those people start, what is their career path? Because they didn't exist before, so where are you going to end? So how do you see that with this really interesting translator role of making that a reality in the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very important question. What we see is first we start by observing. I've uh, I have a passion to meet people in order to understand what they are doing, what are their challenges in our
Mhm.
organization, and I see that part of our people has some soft skills, natural soft
Mhm.
skills that are fundamental in terms of understanding business, questioning, and the ability to translate. Those people were a lot of lead in the BI
Mhm.
space, for instance, where they use basically not to have a large technical background, but more serving the business needs,
Right.
understanding, questioning. And this soft skill was fundamental. Then, of course, we should find a good combination in terms of upskilling the people, in terms of translation. It's where also the access to knowledge is fundamental. I personally think that it's a two side. We need to train our people in order to upskill them, but also we need to facilitate the access to knowledge. With
Right.
GenAI, it's fantastic. We can create chatbot where basically you can have from what you're looking for as a need for your customer to what kind of products, technology, solution, services can permit to access this business demand. So the most important part, I would say, is the ability to have these soft skills and this transversality around the topics. And it was the definition, the mapping skill that we drive around the organization that permit to spot the right talents in order to start this journey around those translator, this data product manager that have appeared in our two line of services around the access to information, but also around AI. On AI, we created the first lead AI product manager, where it's
Mhm.
basically somebody that has both experience. It was data scientist in the past. He has been in the business in the transition about creating value around supply in terms of sales, ability to do what we call business transformation, and basically these two experiences creating a kind of mindset permitting that okay, we can leverage on it. At the end, I will say that a lot of time, as I described, hard skills is based more and more on commodity services that are more easy to use, but we
Yeah.
need to have access to knowledge.
Yeah, I love that. I think we're really moving towards where we democratize the technical aspects, and it's more about the soft skills, the translation, the transformation that we have. One thing that you mentioned is the switch towards good enough. And that's something that I see in many organizations when they go from data and tech centered to more business centered, and business then decides, okay, he need to jump this high. When you have actually data scientists who always want to optimize and get their 95% accuracy and spend another 3 weeks just to go to 96% accuracy. So how do you do that in the organization that you make, because there's a change of culture of saying we now put the business side more in the driving seat and we need to align on this good enough. So how do you do that?
It's fundamental to have some formalization. At the end, it's also processes. We are not reinventing the wheel. We are using what other services that are delivering information. So, from the capturing of data, modelization of data, exposing data in application or in BI standalone tool that are delivering. So, it's processes permitting to say how I define the validation processes in order to say that you meet the demand. The data science, it's a delivery team. We still need this customer layer to do this translation, to go to your data science. You provide this set of functionalities around modelization using combination on top of our platform technology accelerators. But we define a stopping point where you meet the demand and we can go to the market with this first initial step and reiterate this way. So it's clearly professionalization in the way that we are
Mm-hmm.
producing algorithm by reusing basically a service delivery that was used before in
Mm-hmm.
information delivery
Mm-hmm.
at the scope of AI.
I love that. So really learning from some area and translating that. So I challenged you a lot on what are the things that are not going well. But if there's perhaps, let's look from a positive side. If there's one thing that you would say, well, that's really something that we did really, really well, that you believe everybody or everybody where the context is obviously the right one should do something similar, a best practice that you would share with us. What would you say is something that we should really be learning from Saint-Gobain on the best practice?
I would say it is something that maybe is an open door, but business impact first. We need
Mm,
to measure, always start with the business problem that
mm,
we need to try to solve rather than focusing purely on technology. A lot of failures in other companies, in other data transformation could be linked to this lack of, okay, there is a gap that is never matched. So the business impact first to the translation to the business language. It's our duty to bridge, to fill the gap in terms of communication in order to go to the non-AI, non-technical stakeholder in order to give them in their own language what is about what we are doing, the product, the solution, in order that together we create one value chain in order at the end to measure the impact of our actions and to solve that in a very financial way of with our financial community to have real hard savings in order to demonstrate the key roles of data, IT project, AI project, and that it's not only POC, MVP, but a real business transformation that create savings on the value chain and also can develop the top line of our businesses.
I love that. And I think especially the link to finance is always a difficult one because you have on the one side, it's yes, they help us to show that we do value. On the other side, they're really questioning should we do that investment, but we do need more investment on some use cases to increase the maturity overall as an organization so that investments will be less in the future. So I think this coalition between data and finance is always a very interesting one. Perhaps last question. Now, the two of us since 2019, I do lecturing since then. You do all the crazy data and AI things at Saint-Gobain. Now, there's more and more people who get really excited about discussions like that, right? You see a group CDO seeing, okay, you don't only have the strategic topics, you have transformation as well. You're building assets, you're close to the tech. So many people would like to become group CDOs or taking leading roles with the data and AI journey. Is there any personal tips from you to people who would like to take more responsibility in the data and AI space, where you say, if you want to become a leader, there's a couple of key learnings from you personally that you can follow?
I would say, not to repeat myself, around communication skills, business impact orientation, I will add this ability to learn continuously.
Mhm.
Continuously upskill in emerging AI technology in industry trends. We are seeing a fast moving environment where you need to keep the pace, not able to build, but able to connect, understand, and drive the evolution towards the market and the ability to drive the change with also the talents, the cultural alignment to foster a data driven culture by making data accessible and actionable for all employees. So, this curiosity, this questioning, this ability to understand, to connect from the challenge of your company toward what is this new technology permits to have or not permit to do, it is something that I would say it's a fundamental aspect in the success of a CDO, of a group CDO, and also ensure some lifelong success in this continuous evolving environment.
But a very personal question. Curiosity is great, but it takes a lot of time to form yourself. I'm being paid for that, being doing research and doing a professor and teaching and helping organizations. But you have to deliver. You're an executive. You have so much to do. So how do you find the time, you personally, to actually be curious, get into this continuous learning? How do you do that?
I would say that even I can have a first answer about I'm not sleeping, but it's not a good answer because I'm sleeping also. The
That's good.
second answer it's more on the topic about the fact that uh, we need to question ourselves as executive, a fundamental
Mhm.
question about what is our place, what is our value,
Right.
and if in multiple days in a row I see that if I'm not here, I'm not delivering any kind of value for my organization and can be out and the organization will stay like this. I need to change something. I need to
Right.
ask myself what is missing. So this
Right.
curiosity, this ability to question all the long and with curiosity from external, internal is fundamental in the ability to success. So it's part of my role also in order to also permit this transformation and drive this change in Saint-Gobain.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Benoit. It has been very, very rich in the interview. Thank you for sharing all that openly for our audience. Please check out Saint-Gobain. Pretty cool company. They're doing cool things. So you might want to have a look and perhaps apply and then perhaps work with Benoit some way in the future. So thank you very much for joining, Benoit. And for the rest, stay tuned for our next group CDO discussions. Very much looking forward to that. Thank you, Benoit, again.
Thank you very much, Julian. Bye.